Hello and welcome back to another video in this mini series I'm doing where I sort of cross the lines between Sunday Quickie and repair video. Basically, I have a bunch of smaller projects that I've just been meaning to get to that don't really fit the format of a full repair video, but to do it more in the Sunday Quickie style is more or less perfect. Today we have this Game Boy Advance, which has appeared on this channel before. So 4 years ago, I made a video repairing this and it's actually done quite well. The video, I mean, it's got over 40,000 views, which is not too bad. But basically, long story short, the reason it wasn't working was because of leaked batteries. And, I just basically had to clean corrosion and that got it working again. I haven't used it much because usually I'll use my SP because it has the illuminated screen, but I was making that recent video on the GBA flash cart and that's when I realized this wasn't turning on at all. As we can see, we're getting absolutely zero life out of it whatsoever. These batteries are brand new, they're straight out of the pack. I tested them with the multimeter, I know they're good. So yeah, for some reason we have a power issue again. It's just been sitting on a shelf doing nothing for the last 4 years, if I'm gonna be honest. So bit surprised by that. So let's take these batteries out, open it up and see if we can figure out what's going on and hopefully repair it again. And then it can go sit on the shelf again for another 4 years or something like that. So these do have tri-wing screws, I believe they're called. I think that's what they're called. Anyway, you need a special screwdriver, so just keep that in mind if you're following along for some reason and need to disassemble yours as well. A Phillips head screwdriver won't cut it. So we got, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those to get out. And I probably won't excite you with the footage of me getting all 6 out, but I just wanted to say, I rewatched that previous video and I said I bought this for $15 faulty on eBay, which in the present day is an amazing price. Like even in the video I said, oh, look, a working one's between $40 and $50. I had a look on eBay just before filming and you're paying at least $100 for one now working. And from what I could tell, these weren't modded either. They're just run-of-your-mill Game Boy Advances, stock. It appears, they're getting pretty popular. I guess maybe even 4 years ago, they sort of weren't that old, but I think people are starting to get nostalgic for them. And yeah, $100, that was on the lower end as well. Certain sellers were trying to sell it for upwards of $150, even towards the $200 mark, which is just nuts, but it is what it is. So I don't own any other Game Boy Advances. I've got plenty of ways to play Game Boy Advance games. However, I have the SP, I've got the Game Boy player and my GameCube, so don't really have much of a reason to pull this out. And it's why I haven't bothered buying a new one. I just want to get this one working again, just so I have a working version. Because it more or less just sits, it sits as a display piece, more or less. So this is the final screw. I managed to babble on the entire process, which is definitely not unusual with me. Okay, that should be all the screws. Yep, so this whole back case should come off. Should, being the operative. No, there's another Phillips head screw in there. I forgot about that. So let's grab one of those doohickeys. You always just want to double check all the screws are out. You don't want to be forcing things open when there's still a screw there which you don't realize is still there, because that just will cause damage and a heartache. Okay, so can't see any corrosion. Obviously I'm drawn to these capacitors first because they're the ones that are always leaking. I can't see any leakage though. It all looks pretty clean as I left it in the previous video. Obviously I had to just completely spam the board with vinegar. You know what, there is some crap on that contact there. Yeah, there's definitely something going on. So that could be it. could be the problem. There is also, I can see some corrosion near there, where the contact reaches the circuit board. I don't know if that's coming up on camera. So that very well could be it. I was just about to say there is a fuse we can check as well, so let's do that now. So we'll just bung the multimeter into continuity mode, and we'll just check that the circuit is still going through both sides. It's very small. Yep, there we go. Had a bit of trouble getting the probes on the points, but it does appear to be working. Okay, let's test this switch, which is going to be a little bit awkward, but we'll make it work. Let's turn it around. So, I don't know, I'm always sort of guessing with these. All right, I'm just sort of guessing here. I'm wondering if there's something wrong with the switch, because we get a connection both there and we turn it to the other, and it's still getting a connection, but I can't get any other combination between the two. I'm just too much of a dum-dum. I don't know which one's a which. Those two are always connected to each other, no matter what orientation the switch is in. So, could be nothing, could be something, who's to say? Why don't we apply some voltages to these, and we'll just see if it's getting through to the rest of the board. Okay, I think this is the first time I've ever used my power supply on the channel. Anyway, I've set it to 3 volts, which is of course 2 AA batteries. We'll plug that in there, so that's ground. That's the power. And yeah, I guess we'll just see if it turns on. It's actually supposed to be in the on position at the moment, and we're not getting much. So let's have a look at the multimeter and see what that says. So we'll just set that to DC. And we should be getting 3 volts off these contacts, which we are. So the switch is, I guess we should put that to on. Let's test this again, but with the multimeter and voltage. Okay, obviously that's the wrong way around. We've got a negative value there. So there we go, just over 3 volts. If we turn that to off, I want to forget nada. We get half a volt. No, we get 3 volts. Oh God. So that should be 3 volts. So is it just sending 3 volts through regardless? I just don't understand. Weird, like the switch doesn't feel that hot, if I'm going to be honest. Like, you'd think it'd be more clicky. Is it just the bit of plastic that goes on it? Is that what makes it clicky? Yeah, maybe. Because without that, it's just like may as well be a slidey switch. So, yeah, not entirely sure about that one. Weird. Well, we know 3 volts is coming out of these 2 contacts, but I think it might be a good idea just to give it a bit of a clean with vinegar anyway, because I can see corrosion, and I think I will get some into the switch as well, because that's right near where corrosion could enter. And I should add that I didn't have batteries inside of it while it was on display, just so that's out there. So yeah, I think I'll just spam some more vinegar, see how that goes. And then clean it up with some isopropyl alcohol. All right, so I've got my trusty toothbrush, which I noticed is the same toothbrush in the previous GBA repair video from 4 years ago. It's still going, so maybe I should replace it. But anyway, let's just get rid of all that crud that's on there. Yeah, I can see it bubbling up a little bit, which is what it does when it reacts to the corrosion, because it's just eating it up, and hopefully bringing this GBA back to life again. And the switch is bubbling, so it's just weird how it was just sitting there doing nothing, and potentially it's been affected by corrosion again. Like it's, unless one of these caps are leaking and it's not visible, usually it's pretty visible. Oh, you see that bubbling just there? Not sure if that means what I think it means. Yeah, that's bubbling up hardcore. Maybe I need to replace these capacitors. Because sometimes the leakage isn't that obvious, but you'll put it on the board and yeah. Like, I don't know, that's like really shouldn't be doing that. Like if I say do it over here, for instance, it's not really bubbling up at all, is it? Even though there is another capacitor there. Yeah. No, I think I might replace these capacitors anyway. Can't hurt. I do have to do a trip to the electronic shop today regardless, because I'm completely out of solder, as you probably saw in my last video where I was bringing that Game Gear back to life. So, yeah, I mean, we'll need to give this time to dry anyway. We're also going to need to do my grocery shopping. I'm sure you absolutely care about that, don't you? You know what, let's take this board out. Let's give it a good going over with vinegar, just so all bases are covered. And then we'll let it dry. We'll come back later today and we'll do another test. We'll see what happens. So I believe there are more screws holding it in place. Oh, I do need to disconnect the screen as well. So to do that, we just need to pull these little tabs here. You just sort of flick them outwards, like so. Grab the other one. It can be a little bit stubborn sometimes. It's probably better to use your fingernail if you have them. I cut my fingernails the other day, of course, so it's not much use. I think I might need to use a screwdriver, even though I don't want to. Because it is, you know, it is plastic that's sort of been sitting there for, there we go. Screwdriver did the job. We do have to keep in mind how old this is. It is, I don't know, what year did the Game Boy Advance came out? I'd imagine it'd be close to 20 years old these days. Oh yeah, I forgot to take the screw out. So there's a screw there, so, oh, might just need a bigger screwdriver. That screw kind of looks a little bit stripped to me, however, which is never good. There we go, no, we're all good. Oops, sorry, I'm not even in not even filming the correct bit of the board. So sorry about that. Is that the only screw? Looks like it might be. So we can just put that aside. Yeah, I should have, there's all like vinegar and stuff in there now. Oh God, I shouldn't have done that. That wasn't very smart, was it? Probably should have cleaned the board. Should have taken it out of the casing before I cleaned the board, but oh well. So, you know, that side looks okay as well. All right, let's cover the bases here at the top. And let's do the rest. Alrighty, so we've now done as much as we did in the original video. We've given it a good clean with vinegar. So vinegar does take a while to dry, so I'm going to use this opportunity to go out and run my errands, and we'll be back. Okay, and we're back. Did the dishes as well. As we can see, it is all dry, and there is some muck on the tea towel, so evidently there was nasty stuff on the board that has now been removed, so I don't know. Let's see what that does. So unfortunately this is all still wet, but it should be okay to just sort of temporarily plug it in. Actually, do I need the screen plugged in for it to turn on? Let's just plug it in and see what happens. There's a sound coming from the speaker. Oh, if you saw that, the light sort of flashed on and off there. I think it's the switch. It's got to be the switch. Look at that. It's barely sort of staying in. Can you even see that? Yeah. So the switch is struggling to turn it on. I did buy replacement capacitors, but I don't know if the capacitors on this fail so much. You know what? I should probably just check the capacitors. That might be a good idea. Okay, so I've got my in-circuit capacitor tester here, otherwise known as an ESR meter. This is a sort of a cheapo Chinese one, but it should tell us roughly if the capacitor is in working order or not. So 470 microfarads at 16 volts. Is that it? Yep. So that should have a worst case ESR reading of 0.18. It's hard to actually get it on the lead. I'm getting 0.25. Didn't it say 0.18 is the worst? Let's try that again. Oop, it's all over the place. I can't get a solid reading on it. There we go, got the same reading, 0.23, so that's not good, assuming it's right. What about this other one? That's 35 volts, 100 microfarads. So that should be, worst case scenario, 0.32. Again, quite awkward. Hard to get a reading on with these probes. I don't have any pointy probes for this style. Come on. Alright, I'm going to assume that these capacitors probably do need to be replaced, and that's probably what's causing the corrosion on the board. As for the switch, I'm just going to spray a bunch of isopropyl alcohol into it, and then just switch it from on to off. And we'll sort of, hopefully that will clear any gunk out of it, because it wasn't really making a solid connection before. It's a weird switch. I don't have one of those on hand, so if that needs to be replaced, probably not going to be able to do that today. Okay, so I've let the switch dry and I've partially reassembled it, so I was going to say I can put the batteries in, but I can't, of course, because the other side holding in the batteries is part of the case. But that's okay, we'll plug the power supply back onto it. And then we'll see what happens. Again, heard a noise. Try not to zap myself. Where's that switch? So it's working if I hold down the switch. So it's most definitely a dodgy switch and potentially leaky capacitors. It's possible that the leaky capacitors caused the switch to break. Alright, we can conclusively say it's a switch, which I was hoping would not be the case because I don't have a switch like that. So I'm going to do a bit of research and we'll see what we do next. I could technically replace the capacitors today. Don't have them in me. I left them in the other bloody room. Hold that thought. All right, so The good news is, referring back to my previous repair video, I went out and I bought new solder and I bought new wick. Hopefully this will last another 10 years. Anyway, I also bought some capacitors, and the point I was trying to get to is I think they might be too big. They looked massive in the store, and in comparison here they still look quite big. So that one there, the 470 microfarad one, oh man, that's just going to be way too big. That's not going to fit. Look at that size difference. Okay. All right, here's what I'm thinking. And I don't do much thinking. I think I'm going to have to order a new switch, and I'm also going to order a new capacitor kit. I had a quick look. You can find kits online that are the exact same type of capacitor, the sort of surface mount, I guess you could call them, because these are just going to be way too large. So I think I've wasted like a whole $3 there buying those. And yeah, I'm just going to have to figure out this switch situation. So I'm going to do a bit of research and then I'll come back. Okay, I'm back. Been doing some research. So, long story short, we're not going to have a completely working Game Boy Advance today, but we have figured out what I believe is the problem, both possibly leaky capacitors, which I'm going to replace anyway, and most definitely a broken switch. So I've been having a bit of a look online, and it looks like it's pretty easy to find replacements. I may or may not buy from this website. I've just been looking at it because it is Australian. So what's it called? Yesterday's Tech or something. So not sponsored, obviously. They've just come up in Google. You know, they're selling capacitor kits. That also has the inductor as well, of which I couldn't find at JCar. So JCar being a local electronics store. So I'll get those ordered in, and I believe that will be a proper video, not a Sunday Quickie type of one. So kind of annoying that there isn't really a conclusion here. There's going to be a future video, but I guess that's the whole idea of doing this in a Sunday Quickie format. It means you can stay up to date in what's going on. You can figure it, you know, maybe like my process is just a bit more obvious, just how I do things. I don't know. Not really sure where why I'm trying to justify it. If you're watching it this far, you're watching it, and that's great. So I won't take up any more of your time. We'll call it here, but stay tuned for that. Capacitor replacement and switch replacement coming in a video very soon. Anyway, that's it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.